My parents are both conservative Trump supporters. And yes, they're both black. I was a little nervous to make this video at first because I was like, oh, I don't want to put my parents' shit on blast. And then I remembered that my mother is literally in a Jubilee video about black conservatives versus white liberals. And I was like, she's fine. She can handle it. When Donald Trump first started to ruin the Republican Party, I, like many others, took some space from my parents. I was like, I'm gay. How could you do that to me? Blah, 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 blah. And then COVID hit and my dad got cancer. And I was like, oh, that is reality calling ding dong. Like, we need to handle some shit. And I'm fully aware that this is not like the popular left idea of like staying in community with people who are Trump supporters, but like they're my fucking parents, dude. They have supported me. They are brilliant people who are loved and respected in their community. I really admire them as people outside of their political ideology, and I'm sure they feel the same way about me. But when I get very like deep and human about it, I'm like, I am a being on a planet that is orbiting in outer space. There are certain times where I'm like, I don't give a fuck about politics. Like, I just, as a human being, want to stay close to my parents. I'm no longer going to allow Donald Trump and Maga to ruin my real life relationship with my real life parents. I don't agree with their political ideologies, but at the end of the day, I have like a finite amount of time with my parents, and I cannot justify taking any more space from them than I already have. So I offer this to anyone else. I cannot start crying, but I offer this to anyone else who's going through the same thing.
So this is for MAGA pro-life mothers. Now that we know that women and teenage girls are losing their lives in emergency rooms because of these healthcare bans that were put into place by Trump and other Republicans, and even if you believe this garbage about it being the doctors and the hospitals who are misinterpreting the law, what do you think is going to happen when your daughter shows up in an emergency room and has sepsis? Because they're not going to ask you who you voted for. They're not going to listen to you while you're screaming for them to help your daughter about how, oh, that's not what we meant. We met some imaginary woman that we don't know, who's irresponsible, who wants to end her pregnancy. That's who we meant. We didn't mean my daughter, whose now organs are shutting down. So why don't you give that a think while you're at church this Sunday, praying for the unborn? So if you can imagine what that mother was going through in Texas when she was begging them to help her daughter who had blood running down her legs and a fever, think about where you would want to be in that position. Only you can save your daughter right now by voting for Harris and Democrats all the way down the ballot.
So Trump promises to close the Department of Education as one of the first things he plans to do. If he does it or not do it, we don't know. But just in case, here's what's going to happen. The separation of church and state is a constitutional, aka federal mandate. That's going to go away. States are now going to get to decide whether or not all public schools are fully Christian and Christian only. So if you don't want your children being led in prayer at school, too bad. And let's say you do want your kids led in prayer. What kind of prayer do you approve of for your children to be led in? What type of Christian are you? Are you certain that the type of Christian you are is the type of Christian that's going to be leading your child in prayer and reprimanding your child the Christian way at school? Title IX guarantees that schools offer girls sports. You're worried about who's going to be on your girls sports team? Nobody. It's going away. We had to force states to do that. Making sure homeless children are allowed access to public school regardless of their address, that's going away. Schools had to be forced to do that. Making sure the disabled kids are allowed into school, that the school building is accessible, and that they have fair and appropriate and free education for all children, regardless of disability, that's going away. We had to force schools to do that. People think it's all about free and reduced lunch. It's not. It's free and reduced lunch and breakfast, but if the tax base cannot support a school building, the federal government pays for all children to go to that school. That is going away. The way your teachers have to get federal background checks so that we don't have sex offenders around our children for 7 hours a day, that's going away. All of that is going away. Now it's up to the state. Do you live in a state that is not only going to maintain educational standards to set your child up to work anywhere, and do you live in a state that's going to maintain the type of standard to where your system will not be completely destabilized? No, you don't. None of us do. You know what's going to happen? The public school system is going to crumble, and all of that money is going to be left to go to who? Private schools, charters, and homeschool. That's where we're headed. It'll probably start in January. So your son, who's a star quarterback at the best public high school in Texas, I hope he's a senior.
This just in, Christian nationals are now getting Trump's name on their forehead because they never read Revelation 13, because no Christians actually read their Bible. Revelation 13 says that the beast will cause all who refuse to worship his image to be unalived, and it will force all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive the mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Ironically, they're also making golden statues to look like Donald Trump, and some of them, ironically or unironically, are literally worshiping the statues, but it's not a cult.
Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Shut up, Joe. Leah and I have already talked about your search history. We all know that you love lesbians.
Whoa.
Because who else is going to make them feel as stupid as they are? Who? Being a menace is life-giving, okay? It fills my soul with an eye-rolling joy rivaled by only one thing, okay? As a straight white female, I am just privileged enough to be extremely problematic. I am becoming a professional instigator. I honestly didn't know that ruining their Marmalade Messiah fan fiction would be this fun. If they want to worship a little fat man in Depends, then I'm going to grab them by the wampus ween, and the more they squirm, the harder I'm going to squeeze. If they're not red in the face defending their 80-year-old Cheeto man, then I'm not working hard enough. I'm not here to make warm family memories. I'm here to make them feel as uncomfortable as they've been making others feel for the last 8 years. I'm not ruining the holidays. I'm just fact-checking their MAGA fantasies and calling out their wild hypocrisies. Every time they quote Fox News, I choose violence. I might as well feed my cold, dark heart with their discomfort and shock. Their cognitive dissonance is my love language. Their discomfort is foreplay, and I haven't finished yet.
Yeah, I really hope that this is not a FAFO, or whatever you say, that moment for the food industry in America, because you gotta laugh to keep from crying. If we import all these things for our restaurant, all these goods, vegetables and fruits for the restaurants, and then the solution is let's grow them here. I need you to go talk to a farmer right now, especially one who uses undocumented immigrants to harvest their fruits and vegetables, which is like a lot of them, the majority of them. Yo!
So I'm in Walgreens, and there's this guy in front of me who's all decked out in his Maga gear. The one with the daddy's home, you know, with the fist in the air. Anyway, he's there with his Maga hat on and his Trump shirt, and he's getting his prescriptions. So the lady behind the counter that's helping him lets him know, "Sir, I've noticed that you have TRICARE as your insurance, and I'm just letting you know you should be getting a letter in the mail that we are no longer going to be contracted through them at the end of this month." He said, "What do you mean?" We got Selfridge right down the road. What do you mean you ain't going to be contracted through no veterans insurance? And she said, "Sir, there are a whole lot of administrative changes that are going to be going on, and Walgreens, the company, is unsure of what contracts through the VA, what contracts for the military are going to be revised or pulled." She says, "Now, I'm sure there are other pharmacies such as CVS or mail-in pharmacies such as Express Scripts that will still honor your insurance. But as far as Walgreens, we will not." And boy, did this man get so mad. He didn't understand what was going on. So she broke down to him what was happening. She's like, you know, he's talking about getting rid of VA hospitals. He's getting rid of possibly disability for veterans. Or putting a 10-year max cap on that, and it's going to be an extremely hard process to even be approved for that. So this guy, he's just like staring at her, and he goes, "Well, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do." He said, "You know, the only thing that I live off of right now is my VA and my Social Security." And she just kind of looked at him, and I looked at him, and I said, "They're going to be taking your Social Security too." And I looked down at his shirt, and I looked back up at him. I said, "You know, from one veteran to another, Daddy doesn't give a fuck if you have your medicine or not. He really doesn't. He doesn't care that you served. He deferred his freaking draft 4 times because his feet hurt. I mean, what do you expect from the guy? Well, Republicans are supposed to be all about their military. I said, this is not about Republicans and Democrats, sir. There's Republicans, there's Democrats, and then there's Maga. And I said, and unfortunately, you're all a part of the Maga. I said, hey, you voted for him. You fucked around and now you're gonna find out. And I kind of feel bad because his face was just so like this was the first time he ever heard this. This was the first time he was ever hearing that as a veteran, his benefits, his security is being threatened. That his social security is being threatened. Like, where the fuck are these people staying? Where are they at? Like, living under a rock? I don't get it. But anyway, that's my story.
You know, at the end of the day, with all of MAGA figuratively shoving our nose in our own shit like we're dogs in order to feel superior about Trump winning the election, I actually pity this man that she's talking about. And here's the thing. We have no idea what's going to happen. And I'm a veteran. My parents are veterans. I'm a military brat through and through. And now veterans' options are going to be severely limited, as if vets don't have hard enough time already. There's a lot of consequence that comes from the results of elections and the words that comes out of politicians' mouths during these elections. It kind of reminds me of this debate I was having with somebody recently who was saying, don't worry about mass deportations. That's not going to happen. He doesn't have the power to do that. It was just a ploy. It was a talking point or whatever. Well, that remains to be seen. And beyond that, he appears to be doubling down. It's going to have massive implications for our economy. And even if that never happened, which it's looking like it is, just the fact that it has been used as a part of his political strategy is going to have, and has had, demonstrable consequences in our communities. The same way that his Project 2025 initiative that he pretended to not know anything about, and everyone looked the other way, is going to have massive implications. If I've said it once, I've said it twice, and I've said it thrice. Having zero scope of what your iconic billionaire leader is proposing in his policies simply because he loathes the same groups of people that you do is the ultimate fuck around and find out karma that you are about to receive.
Hey guys, I'm here with your favorite president. We're cranking out a couple mean tweets at the courthouse. Why don't you read that last one, because I think it's pretty epic.
I think I'm going to put it out instead of reading it, but I know my son's doing very well on social media. I'm proud of him.
Stay tuned. It'll be a doozy.